Hello, everybody, and welcome into an episode of Triple Coverage with our host, the bodiless Scott Utterback. In fact, if you've watched this show multiple times or ever before, you'll notice that you've probably never seen this guy before, but he actually usually sits like right
over there
behind the camera. Yeah, he's not here tonight, but he's here in spirit. His name is Scott Utterback. He's a delightful gent, and he looks great on a fat head.
You got some TV
A
time
makeshift,
at Kentucky,
fat
Kentucky,
head. It's
Georgia
not a
this
real
weekend.
fat head. We need to make him like the real full body Scott Utterback fat head. But anyway, we thought that would be funny, and it probably wasn't. But I'm Jeff Greer. This is John Hale. Welcome into another episode of Double Coverage. Did you have a nice holiday season, John?
I did.
Good.
It's been a month or so since I've been in the double coverage set, so it's nice to be home.
Yeah.
A little cold outside, though. So
Warm and
not
fuzzy
excited.
inside. Lots of
That's
love.
true.
And also, guys armed with water bottles because I don't know about you, but I have been under the weather like pretty much everyone else in
And
America
I'm
for the last
certain to be
3
under
weeks.
the weather now after sitting next to Jeff. for the
Can't
next
wait.
half hour.
Hope you don't get what I have because it was miserable in New York, especially when we were there for Louisville versus Memphis. Anyway, we got a good show tonight for you. We've got lots of Louisville and Kentucky basketball talk. We were just joking. We didn't realize when we were planning this, John and I, when we came up with our questions of the week, that we actually were basically asking the same questions about Louisville and Kentucky. Even after last week's game, still some questions that linger, similar questions about both teams, probably more urgent for Louisville, obviously. And then we'll talk about life for Louisville and Kentucky football after their bowl seasons. What's next? Of course, Lamar Jackson and his decision with the NFL coming up here is probably at the front of everyone's mind. For Louisville fans, we'll get you a treat of the week. And then this week's Top 8 at 8 is a very exciting, special,
Explosive, I would say.
explosive current events Top 8 at 8. Think about it for a second, and you will.
Or the next 15 minutes.
Or the next 15 minutes. We'll cut it short. Everything else, we will hardly talk about sports, just so we can get to our Top 8 at 8. But John, let's start with Kentucky basketball. I know I'm going out of order here a little bit, but
Jeff throws it up every time.
yeah, I do this every time. But Kentucky got the win, obviously, over Louisville on Friday, but now is preparing to go and play on the road for the first time in
We
the
are
SEC.
actually the unofficial pregame show tonight. Kentucky and LSU tip off at 8:30, 8:45 roughly in Baton Rouge. That's why Fletcher Page is not here today during basketball season. He is in Baton Rouge
He's
to
a
cover that game.
mad scientist.
Yeah, so follow him on Twitter for those updates. But it's Kentucky's first road game of the season, first true road game. They played 3 neutral site games in New Orleans, Chicago, and New York. This is the first time this young team, starts 5 freshmen, will play in front of a hostile road crowd.
Mm-hmm.
That has not gone well for John Calipari's teams in previous years. I think they've lost 6 of their first 8 true road games in his tenure here. Obviously, they lost at Louisville last year in the first true road game. So it's been a problem. We asked John Calipari about it yesterday at his pregame press conference, and he downplayed it and said they've played away from Rupp Arena in these other games. He's not worried about how they respond to the environment. He's worried about how they communicate and blah, 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 blah. I wish he would just say, it doesn't matter. They don't play road games in the tournament, so I don't care if they lose on the road.
That's a good
in this
point.
first
They
game.
don't actually
He
play
did not
road
say that.
games.
He instead tried to make the bizarre argument that playing Monmouth in Madison Square Garden would somehow prepare them for hostile SEC crowds. I don't think that's true. I would not be shocked if Kentucky lost tonight, although LSU is not very good, so maybe they make it through that one. But the 4 of their next 5 games are on the road. They got LSU, Tennessee on Saturday, then Vanderbilt and South Carolina next week after a home game against Texas A&M. So we're going to find out a lot more about this young team and how much they've matured and how much they've grown here in the coming games.
We've got just so you know, we're not being like rude millennials here. We're actually.
Well, Jeff is. But.
I'm sort of being a rude millennial, but also we have the show. It's kind of weird, actually. You can see your face looking back at you, which unfortunately I have to do the same thing in the mirror every morning when I try to look presentable. But if you leave a comment under here, a question, whatever you want, my friend Samantha, better known as OJ, asks, "Where's Fletcher?" We apologize
I'm
for
wondering
John's
that too.
substitute.
I'm really upset about it myself.
John's got the distinguished professor look tonight. I like it.
Yeah, I was at Fletcher's house for the semifinal game the other
Oh,
day.
yeah.
The Georgia native and his better half were both quite excited about that game. So we'll see what happens next week for Fletcher and his Georgia pals. But he is not in double coverage.
Oddly enough, he does not have a bulldog.
He does not.
He's
No.
not truly. Are you really
Mini
a Georgia
Australian
fan if you
Shepherd.
don't have a bulldog? Same question, pretty much posed for Louisville. I think this is fascinating. Louisville, faced with virtually the same exact situation at Purdue and at Kentucky. Okay, Spalding and Mahmoud both with foul trouble. A lot of freshmen on the floor, particularly Jordan Wara and Darius Perry. Dangerous situation. I think it was a 12-0 Purdue run. Completely changed the complexion of the game. Crowd is behind Purdue, everything, and Louisville fought back with a couple of bang-bang plays. They got Jordan Wara hit a three. Darius Perry found, I think it was VJ King for a three. And the freshmen, the guys who were exposed against Kentucky, played really well to help kind of fight back that surge at Purdue. At Kentucky, as everybody knows, the game was pretty much decided in the final 7 minutes with a kind of cobbled together lineup. As David Padgett said tonight on his radio show, he's a little gun shy of bringing back either Mahmoud or Spalding, probably Spalding in this case, playing with 2 fouls. And those 6 minutes and 42 seconds, I believe, are the final run of the half there, really determined the game. And I think he knows that he missed a chance to kind of try to stop the momentum a little bit. So my question now for Louisville is, going forward, I'm going to write about this, is which game was a better indicator of what Louisville is this year? Was it their performance at Purdue, or was it the Kentucky implosion? I tend to believe that it was Purdue, just because they're too talented. They've got a lot of veterans on the team. It's not like them, even with Rick Pitino not being there, it's not like them to completely capitulate against a good team, especially against a rival.
Yeah, you can kind of throw out rivalry games sometimes too, different emotions, things happen.
It's just a weird, and don't get me wrong, I mean, Kentucky thumped them, they were way better. There's no doubt about it. I don't think anyone would argue that. But from Louisville's standpoint, going forward, I do earnestly believe we saw them respond in solid fashion last night against Pittsburgh. They crushed Pittsburgh, as you would expect them to, but they played with energy, verve, confidence for about 30 minutes. They just need to keep adding 35, 30. I know Kentucky's kind of in the same boat at this point with that. So, John, let's go to the trending topic of the week. For both teams, Louisville and Kentucky football, it's a quarterback-related issue. So for Kentucky, Drew Barker is out. It's touchdown Terry, right, is coming in?
Terry touchdown is what he's preferring
There you
to
go.
by
That's
now.
a good nickname. So Kentucky has a change in their quarterback situation. Is that, do you think, the number one storyline going into the offseason for them?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I wrote earlier this week about just the various offseason storylines you can hit, and obviously there are a couple NFL draft decisions coming up with Josh Allen and Mike Edwards. We're still waiting on those. We should expect some staff changes, just because that happens with almost every college football staff in the course of an offseason. And they've got 2 assistants, Lamar Thomas and Steve Klinkskill, who their contracts are up in June. So we've got to figure out that. But the third topic in that story was transfers.
Yeah.
And you need to clear some space every offseason. Attrition is pretty normal in programs to get your new recruiting classes in. I did not expect it to come this quickly, though. Literally within hours of posting that post offseason storyline story, Drew Barker transferred, which I talked to his dad today. We have a story up on CourierJournal.com that you can check out. He said that it was actually the style of offense that led Drew to leave, not that Terry Touchdown was coming in, the number one junior college quarterback in the country, according to ESPN. There's a big question for Kentucky what the offense looks like moving forward, and it's obviously shifted to a run-heavy attack, emphasized Steven Johnson's kind of dual threat skills, and that's what Terry Wilson, Terry Touchdown, his similar skill set than Steven Johnson. And Drew Barker's more of a pro-style guy. He got recruited to run the air raid at Kentucky. That's what he ran for 2 years here, and he decided that if he was going to spend his last year somewhere, maybe it was for a better fit. I think having Terry Wilson come in probably accelerated that decision and put the writing on the wall, but we'll see where that happened. Another Kentucky player, Bryant Koback, a freshman running back, transferred this afternoon. So that's 2 down already. I would expect there are probably more just from normal attrition, but it's not going to get any bigger than Drew Barker. He was the favorite to win the starting job in spring, regardless of what Terry Wilson does. So to have him down, now there are no quarterbacks on the roster who have ever thrown a pass in a Division I game before. So that's a huge question for Kentucky going into the spring, summer, and then into preseason camp next fall.
For Louisville, there was stuff floating around today about him and his draft decision, citing unnamed sources, kind of felt like a classic NFL draft speculation story, so I don't want to put too much stock in that. But I did think our colleague Jake Lorem, I said that really fast, our football writer, the Louisville football writer, had a really great breakdown, pros and cons, of why Lamar Jackson would go pro after his junior season, why he would stay. I think most people, they put me on the spot earlier on the radio here locally, what percentage chance would I give of him staying? I said 10%, 1 out of 10. I think that's a pretty good portrayal of where he is. But that obviously for Louisville is a monster question. If he comes back, Lamar Jackson is good enough that he covers up a lot of flaws. And we've learned that from watching Louisville last year and this year, that he is so productive, so dynamic, that he can just take over games and produce in ways that make up for a lot of flaws. The downside for him would be if he were to come back by what I would call almost a miracle at this point, or incredible, would be Louisville is losing most of its key defensive guys. They're going to have a really young team on both sides of the ball. Really the only positive or sort of veteran returning group as a collective unit is the offensive line, which is great for him, but you can't win every game 75-68 unless you're Pittsburgh and Syracuse 2 years ago. It just doesn't work like that. So a lot to weigh for these guys when they're trying to make these pro decisions, and a lot of money on the line.
Obviously, the injury risk to Northwestern's quarterback, Clayton Thorson, who's obviously not the prospect that Lamar Jackson is, but he was a guy who was mentioned as going early, made the decision to come back for his senior year, then tore his ACL in the bowl game against Kentucky, and now who knows how long he's going to be out. You don't want that for anybody, but when that happens, it only reminds these other guys who have to make those decisions more and more that it's a possibility. It's a risk every time you come back. Every hit could be the last one.
Yeah. It's a big reason Jair Alexander, he got his draft advisory board grade, saw what it was, saw where he was likely to go in the draft, said, I've already been hurt 2 or 3 times this season significantly. Why would I risk my body, you know? I don't know. Anyway, let's move on.
Let's do it.
We'll go to the tweet of the week. And I don't know if you know this. You should know this by now. We try to give more than just the basketball and football teams some love here. But we're going to give the Louisville women's basketball team some love. This is obviously from a couple of days ago, but more important is the second part. Don't worry necessarily about the score there. They are 16-0 and off to the best start in program history for a team that reached the national championship game recently, the last couple of years, 5 years, and has been one of the best programs in the country now for a few years in a row. Pretty impressive to be 16-0.
That's pretty good. The Kentucky women are not good right now. They've lost 6 games in a row for the first time in a long time, but that's good for Louisville in terms of it doesn't look like UK is going to make the tournament right now. But there is a NCAA tournament regional at Rupp Arena this year for the 3rd year in a row. So without Kentucky in the building, that I would think bodes well for Louisville's chances to be the #1 seed in that region, and they could theoretically be playing for the Final Four in Lexington, just down the road with their fans in the building, which would be a nice boost for them.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's what Kentucky thought they were going to. The benefit was going to be when they signed up for that deal for 3 years.
No, absolutely not. All right, John, it's best time of the show. Top 8 at 8. Let's hit it.
Let's do it.
Or were they always there and I just was so focused
you're so
on
focused on Steve and J-Lo.
Steve and Jennifer Lawrence. Mostly Steve, I promise. We are doing top 8 at 8 this week in honor of the cyclone bomb or bomb cyclone, whatever you want to call it, this horrific storm, winter storm that is almost covering where I have to fly this weekend. So I hope that this thing goes away. I think it will. Hope that my parents up in Providence, Rhode Island will be okay dealing with this horrible, horrible winter storm headed up the East Coast.
Couple notes before we start here. When Jeff emailed me this morning and said we should do top 8 at 8 bombs in honor of the bomb cyclone, I did not know what he was talking about until recently, just maybe like 10 minutes ago. I thought it was in reference to something the president tweeted last night, but
it may have been.
We're not very political on double coverage, so we'll stick away from that.
No.
The other thing I need to note here is if anyone in the Gannett headquarters is watching me tonight, I apologize ahead of time for any weird search results for types of bombs that showed up on my work computer today. I promise it was work-related.
Yeah, CC, the FBI, CIA, ATF, DEA, whatever organization would be following us, LMPD, please, I'm the same. I Googled famous bombs earlier today and was dismayed to find almost all of them had to do with explosives and not a whole lot to do with all this. So top 8 at 8 bombs. We're trying to keep this fun, PG, family-oriented. It's still early enough. Your kids shouldn't be in bed yet. John, start us off with your first one.
All right, number 8 here. I am going nerdy. Lord
Full
of the
dork
Rings,
alert here.
Tom Bombadil. I'm usually a huge book snob. Always book better than the movie. My one exception, though, is Lord of the Rings. I think those movies are way better than the books, and one of the reasons is Tom Bombadil, a random character, is not in the movies. He is very boring. He adds nothing to the plot, and so Peter Jackson just cut him out.
Okay, fair enough.
Good topic.
Yeah, there you go. That's one of my favorite Jim Gaffigan skits is when he's like, oh, really, the book was better. Well, I just spent 2 hours watching this movie, and now I have the rest of my life to live.
There you go.
He's so right. Okay, I grew up in New England. I grew up really, really, really disliking the Yankees. But the very first thing that came to mind for me when I came up with my top 4 bombs was the famous call during the Yankees games when Alex Rodriguez would hit a home run, that same refrain, "It's an A-bomb from A-Rod." Oh my God.
Maybe the worst broadcasting crew in the history of baseball.
It's
BS Network.
got to be top 3.
Yeah, they're real bad.
They're real bad, but that is, I put it on there because that's the first thing that came to mind, and I felt like, you know what, if I'm Googling famous bombs, I should probably put in the one that is not anything controversial and immediately comes to mind.
All right, my next one, number 6 on our list here. I was trying to go a little literal for one of my picks. I do not have very much experience with actual bombs. But as a kid, my birthday party every year was at the state park in Floyd County, eastern Kentucky, and we had a water gun fight. All my friends brought their water guns. I brought my water guns. It was a huge thing. And to have a water gun fight, you got to have some water balloon bombs.
A little artillery.
Makes it always better. It's the friendly kind of bomb, the one everybody can get behind. Nobody gets seriously hurt.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. Someone could get hurt.
And maybe if you're in the 20 age group, you might have something in some of these water balloons that is not necessarily water.
Got to be careful.
But for me, as a child, pretty safe.
John, I heard that you had typed up and then deleted a tweet claiming that your water balloon bomb button was bigger than my water balloon button.
Yeah, I think that's pretty safe to say.
Yeah. Anyway, let's go on to my number 2, or my number 3, my second one here. Great choice by me. I'm really proud of this choice.
I like this one too.
If you are anyone under the age of like 45 years old, you have played Mario Kart. And probably, honestly, you don't. It's really for all ages. It's a great game. I love I think they're actually kind of cute. The walking bombs. The only problem is they've got the little spinner thing on it, and if you see it too early and you don't do enough to get around it, that is really going to mess up your little ride there in Mario Kart. Great game, probably the best video game of all time.
Yeah, last week in Nashville it was really cold, and so I did not really do much exciting things, but I brought my Nintendo Switch with me, and myself and a couple other riders on the UK beat maybe played some Mario Kart for a couple hours in the hotel instead of going out to any adult establishments.
So you listed a Lord of the Rings guy, and then you just
played video games at a bowl game.
At a bowl game.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a huge nerd, Jeff.
I honestly would have probably played the video games so hard in Nashville. Okay, number 4, what do you got?
Number 4, movie. I was trying to come up with some best bomb movies. This movie is amazing. I don't know if you've ever seen it before. Doctor Strangelove.
I have.
It's a classic.
I know it's a classic.
Of cinema. Very edgy, maybe a little bit. A little farce, a little satire, political satire. Great scene at the end with a bomb. But Dr. Strangelove, if you're going for bomb movies, if you're going for classic cinema, which I don't normally get into.
Don't search that on Netflix. Don't search bomb movies. Same reason you don't want to Google it.
Yeah, Dr. Strangelove. That's the movie you're going to go for.
Okay. One of my favorite moments in Congress I just revealed that I'm a huge dork. Watching
There you go.
C-SPAN once, I think it was when John Roberts was being confirmed as the Chief Justice, and I'm pretty sure it was Joe Biden as a senator. They were going back and forth, and he's like, I can't get you to answer anything. You won't even tell me what your favorite movie is. And then he quipped back North by Northwest, which I thought was actually pretty funny. Dr. Strangelove, though, I've heard is a great movie. I need to see it. It's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Okay, my next one, I wanted to go with something sports. Got the A-Rod in there. Went with something on the football field, and it is something that continuously keeps, well, I guess continuously means the same thing, continuously happens. Aaron Rodgers. I must have said Alex Rodriguez again. Aaron Rodgers. How many times have you been watching the Packers and this dude has uncorked a bomb, like a Hail Mary, that has been caught? I mean, it's like all of a sudden it's become something that is
kind of his thing.
Yeah, it's like his thing
his
now.
legacy. Right?
Yeah, Lions, Cardinals. I'll never forget I was on 4th Street, which I don't get to 4th Street a whole lot. I was there for a birthday party. I don't remember what I was doing, but everybody all at the same time flipped out, and I found a TV. I knew there were playoff games going, and it was the A-Rod, the new A-Rod bomb.
There we go.
There you go.
It's like that time we were in Iowa at an adult establishment, and Northern Iowa hit a game
Northern
winner
Iowa
in the
hit the
NCAA
game
tournament.
winner.
We did not know what was going on.
That was legit. Who did they beat?
I don't remember. Somebody good.
Somebody good. They were not supposed to win that game, as usual. Okay, what do you got?
My last one, number 1, favorite television show of all time, Lost. It's great.
Really?
Watched it at least 5 or 6 times all the way through. A huge plot point, though, in the final seasons when it gets a little janky, I admit. I got some hate before the show tonight about the finale of Lost not being very good, which I can maybe get on board with, but there is an atomic bomb and some time travel and some blowing up an island, and spoiler alert, you just need to watch the show, but there is a bomb that is very, very pivotal to the plot of Lost, and it's called Jughead. That's a picture of it right there. If you haven't seen Lost, get out there. I think between Lost, Lord of the Rings, Dr. Strangelove, it's pretty clear if you dedicated double coverage viewers did not know yet. I am a huge nerd, and that is how it is.
Is Lost considered nerdy? I thought that was like a pretty popular show.
I mean, it was pretty popular, but it's at its heart a fantasy show. So.
I'll admit that I have hovered over the play button on the first season, first episode of Lost on like a Saturday at like 2 p.m. probably like 20 times.
If you watch the pilot, it's the greatest pilot in television history. There's
Better
no
than The
way.
Office?
Yeah, there's no way you could not watch the rest of the first season if you watch the pilot.
Okay.
It's 2 hours long though. So.
Well, if you want to watch all of these things while doing my number 1, which is eating a biscuit bomb, I would highly recommend it. Maybe do it while you're playing Mario Kart. But the biscuit bomb comes in number 1 for me. Easy choice. Jeff didn't know what that was. Jeff, our graphics guy, our key guy here, the producer, director, whatever you want to call him, kills the game behind the scenes here. Didn't know what a biscuit bomb is. You can see it on the screen here. It is literally a biscuit with cheese in it.
That sounds pretty good.
Like that. Unanimous number 1. Biscuit with cheese in it.
I introduced myself earlier this year to some Brazilian cheese bread before. You ever had that? It looks a little bit like a biscuit bomb.
That
pretty good.
Sounds amazing.
It's good.
All right. We got nothing else. Sorry for scaring you earlier with the Scott Utterback fathead.
Samantha Fletcher might be back next week. So. Or we might not.
I might be gone. We don't know. The national championship game's coming up. We'll have to figure something out. Georgia, Alabama, Monday night next week. Enjoy that one. For John Hale, I'm Jeff Greer. We'll see you later, everybody.